Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be solving another Leetcode problem, and it's called flipping an image. Now, I decided to choose this particular problem not because it used any special data structures, because it doesn't, but I wanted to start giving you guys like some concepts that is kind of important when you're programming. This kind of problem is something that you might actually solve in like day-to-day work. So without further ado, let's dive into the problem. So let me quickly read the problem. Given a binary matrix A, we want to flip the image horizontally, then invert it, and return the resulting image. Images are represented basically by ones and zeros, it looks like, and they have some few examples here. Looking at this example is a little like kind of complicated. So basically what they're saying is, let's say that you have an image, let's say it's black and white, and you want to flip it horizontally, and then you want to invert the colors essentially. So this problem is actually really straightforward. If I were to pseudocode this, the only thing we need to do is we need to first flip our image, and to do that, because the variable A that we get is a 2D array, and it's essentially a matrix. So essentially what a matrix is, in at least in programming, I mean there's like mathematical terms, they're basically the same terms, but a matrix is basically you have nested arrays that represent rows and your columns. So for example, this doesn't really give you a good example of what the array would look like, but if I were to just pseudocode some stuff, if you had this would be an array, and inside that array, let's say the first row, you have like a bunch of numbers here, and then the next row you have a bunch of other numbers here, and then like so. One thing that's really cool about this kind of representation is that now you have essentially XY coordinates, right? Gosh, people are texting me. These people trying to make YouTube videos here. So using that, you can make like a chessboard, you can make like a chessboard, like a Sudoku board, like all these incredible things you can do in programming just by leveraging a nested array, this like 2D matrix. So to solve this problem, let's break it down into a few steps, right? So first we need to flip the image, and then we need to invert the image. Now if you look at this example down here, I will paste it here to make it a little bit more visible. Let's format this in pseudocode essentially to make it seem like we're looking at rows, right? So if that's one row, and then the next one 0 1 1 1 1 0 1 0. Now this is essentially everything in rows. So this is one row, another one, and then the next one will be like a column, right? So columns will be 1 1 0 1. Now to flip this image, the only thing we would have to do is reverse each row, right? So that would look something like actually so that would look something like 0 0 1 1, and then 0 1 1 0, and then 1 1 1 0. Hope I'm not doing this wrong. I'm doing it quickly. 0 1 0. I'm not like changing the values, but what I'm doing is I'm reversing the order. Now to invert it, to invert this image, assuming that like a 0 would be like a white color, and then a 1 would be like a black color, you essentially will go through the entire structure of this matrix and then just invert the colors, right? So a 0 would be 1, and then a 0 will be 1, sorry, a 1 will be a 0, and a 0 will be 1, etc. So this is essentially what we're doing here. and then all of these would be zeros except for the last one. So I'm kind of going through this really quickly, but I wanted to show you guys this like representation of what we will be doing, right? So hopefully I did that correctly. It's kind of hard to double check the work that I'm doing while I am talking to you guys. So flip the image and invert the image. Now what I described here is actually really easy to do. So let's go ahead and program this right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to traverse the array, all of the rows, right? So we could do that using just like a straight up easy for loop. So let I equals 0, I is less than a dot length, and then I plus plus. Now what this does is if I did something like a dot I, this now is essentially grabbing the value of the row, right? So we already said that for us to flip the image, we just have to reverse each row. So reverse. This is like a helper function in JavaScript that gets attached to arrays. So you could just use this, and we could just, you know, set that equal to the new reverse. And now just with that line of code, we have flipped the image. Super simple, right? But that doesn't solve this problem. The next thing we need to do is invert the image. So for us to invert the image, it's actually really simple. We just have to go through all of the cells, check all of the cells, and then just convert them. If they're 1, make them a 0, and if they're a 0, make them a 1, essentially. Now there's many ways to do this. We could, you know, write another for loop here and then do it. But another thing we can do is we could just, since we just reversed this guy, we could just map, we can map this thing, you know, past a cell. We're just chaining, doing some composition here. Then we could say something like if cell equals 1, then this is a ternary operation, and we could return a 0, and then we could return a run. Right. So yeah, and the cool thing about map is that map returns, same with reverse, is it returns a mutated version of your array. So that's why I'm using a map instead of like a for each, for example. A for each doesn't return an array. So that should be it. One thing that I don't like is I like modified the original input, but that's fine. We'll submit that, and it looks like it was accepted. So that's pretty much it. This problem is really simple. So yeah, it looks like we solved it. It's a really simple problem. The main reason I chose this problem is because I want you guys to start getting really used to nested arrays, because when this is actually one of those problems where you might actually, there's a high chance that you might run into a problem like this. It may not be like flipping an image per se, because, you know, there's other more optimized ways to do it, but, you know, and also what kind of colors only have black and white, like 0 and 1, right? Usually it will be some kind of RGB value, and then, you know, there's ways to invert that as well, because RGB is, again, it's just a standardized number, like 256 bit colors. But anyways, there's standard ways to reverse colors. But one thing that you'll do over and over again is work with nested arrays. It's just one of those things where you need to be very comfortable navigating to traversing arrays, traversing nested arrays, you know, going down just the columns, you know, zigzagging. There's always just like a reason to have to, you know, have those kind of access patterns, and things come up. So getting really familiar and like really conceptually understanding what you're doing, just by, you know, like looking at this like array, you immediately see, oh, in my mind I see a 2D grid. You know, that's going to be super helpful for you guys in the future. you know, especially when you start doing like graphing problems, you're like a maze, like that maze is going to be represented in the 2D array, for example. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this problem. It was a super quick one, and I'm trying to make these really quick. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.